colony's edge was a place no one wanted to visit, a place where broken things were left behind, hidden away so the rest of the world could forget. There stood a shelter, its walls dull and gray, its lights dim, its smell heavy with dust and sadness. Inside that shelter, alien children waited, abandoned by their families, rejected by society. Among them sat a girl, small, thin, with scars across her arms and face. Her eyes were a strange, pale blue that did not shine like others of her kind. She always sat in the same corner, silent, her head bowed as if the weight of the world pressed on her shoulders. The caretakers called her the Broken One, and the other children avoided her. Some whispered that she was cursed, others mocked her weakness. No one wanted to sit near her. No one wanted to touch her. Every time a visitor came to the shelter, the children lined up, trying to look strong, trying to look perfect, hoping to be chosen. They would smile, stand tall, show their talents. But the broken girl never tried. She had stopped hoping long ago. When she was younger, she had begged to be picked. But each time hands pointed past her, eyes slid away, and she was left behind. The years taught her one truth. She was unwanted. On this day, the air outside carried the sound of heavy boots. A visitor had come. The children rushed to the front hall, their faces bright with forced smiles. The caretaker walked in proudly, saying, "Here are the healthy ones, strong and ready." The broken girl did not move. She sat in her corner, arms wrapped around her knees, waiting for the moment when she would be ignored again. But the visitor was different. He was human. His name was Daniel. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing simple clothes and carrying tired eyes, he scanned the children with quiet thought. He saw their smiles, their rehearsed tricks, but something felt empty. He was not looking for perfection. He was looking for something else, something real. As his gaze swept across the hall, it paused, in the corner, in the shadows. He saw her, the broken girl, her thin frame, her scarred arms, her pale eyes staring at the floor. She looked like she was trying to make herself invisible. But Daniel noticed. The caretaker frowned, rushing forward. "Not her, sir. She is not fit, fragile, broken. You don't want her." His voice carried a sharp edge, as if embarrassed by her presence. The other children watched silently, relieved that the human's eyes had fallen on the one no one wanted. Daniel ignored the words. Slowly he walked across the room, the sound of his boots heavy in the silent hall. The broken girl lifted her head for the first time. Her eyes widened when she realized he was standing before her. She expected him to turn away like the others, but he crouched down so his face was level with hers. For a long moment he said nothing. He just looked into her pale eyes, eyes that carried years of pain and silence. Then he spoke softly. "What's your name?" Her lips trembled. No sound came out. She had almost forgotten how to speak to someone who cared. Finally she whispered, her voice weak. I don't know anymore." Daniel's heart clenched. She had been broken so badly that even her name was forgotten. He reached out a hand, slow and gentle. "Then I'll give you one. But first, will you come with me?" The caretaker tried to interrupt. "Sir, I must warn you." But Daniel's voice cut through firmly. "I'll take her." Gasps filled the room. No one had ever chosen her. The broken girl froze, unable to understand. Her hands shook, her breath caught, her chest tightened, as if her body did not know how to accept kindness. Daniel's hand stayed in front of her, waiting, patient. No force, no demand, just an invitation. The girl stared at it, her smile, while fingers twitching, then slowly, with hesitation, she placed her hand in his, her voice barely a whisper. "Why? Me?" Daniel gave a faint smile. "Because you deserve more than this." For the first,
the transport pod moved silently through the sky, gliding over the colony's rooftops and dusty plains. Inside, the small alien girl sat close to the wall, her knees pulled to her chest, her eyes wide with confusion and fear. She had never been in a ship this quiet, this clean, and with a human beside her who hadn't raised his voice or hit her. Daniel sat on the opposite seat, not too close, giving her space. He didn't talk much, but his eyes kept checking her, watching gently, making sure she wasn't too scared. He had given her a blanket, even though the pod wasn't cold, and a small bottle of juice she hadn't dared to open yet. She had no bag, no toys, no name, only the tattered clothes she wore and the strange silence that followed her like a shadow. Daniel finally spoke, his voice calm and soft. "Are you comfortable?" She didn't answer, just nodded once, her fingers still gripping the seat. She had never been taken like this before, not without being dragged, pushed, or ordered. This felt wrong in a strange way, too soft, too quiet, too kind. He reached over, slowly, and placed a small wrapped snack beside her. It's sweet, not spicy, you might like it. She looked at it, then at him, then back at the treat. Her hand trembled as she reached for it, unwrapping it carefully like it might explode. Her first bite was tiny, but when the taste hit her tongue, her eyes blinked fast, and she ate more, faster. Then suddenly stopped, scared again. Daniel noticed. It's okay, no one will punish you for eating. Her lips moved, almost whispering, they used to beat me when I stole food. Daniel's face darkened for a second, but he kept his voice calm. You don't have to steal anymore, everything in my home is yours now. She stared at him like he had spoken in a language she had never heard before. The rest of the ride passed in soft silence, except for her small bye. Tez and his quiet glances. Finally, the pod landed, the door opened with a smooth hiss. Outside was not a grand city, but a quiet hillside with a small house made of stone and warm light coming from the windows. Birds chirped nearby, and the air smelled clean. She stepped out slowly, her feet hesitant. The ground felt too soft, like a dream. Daniel led the way, unlocking the door, then paused. Would you like to go inside first? She looked at him, unsure what to say, then stepped forward, and the moment she crossed the doorway, her legs froze. The house had a soft rug, colorful walls, and paintings of places she had never seen. The lights were warm, not blinding, and the air inside felt safe. Her eyes searched for chains, guards, rules on the wall. There were none. Daniel watched her closely. You can choose any room you like, but I thought this one might be good for you. He opened a small door to reveal a cozy room, with a bed, soft blankets, and a small window looking out at the hills. The girl walked in slowly, then reached out and touched the bed. Her fingers pressed into the blanket, feeling the softness. She turned to him, her eyes full of disbelief. This is mine, she asked. Daniel nodded. Yes, it's yours. She sat on the edge of the bed like it might disappear, then looked up, her voice quiet. If I break something, will you send me back? He walked over, kneeled beside her, and looked into her frightened eyes. No, never, not even if you break 10 things. She didn't speak after that, just curled up on the bed with the blanket around her, her eyes wide open in the dark. Daniel stood at the door, watching her, then quietly left her alone. As the stars rose outside the window, the girl whispered to the silence, please don't be a dream. The morning sun touched the hills softly, casting golden light through the window of the small room. The alien girl opened her eyes slowly, afraid that the bed beneath her would vanish, afraid the warmth was just another trick from her dreams. But it didn't vanish. The bed was real, and so was the soft pillow under her cheek. She sat up, pulling the blanket around her shoulders. The room was quiet, too quiet. She looked at the door. It was still open, no guards, no alarms, no shouting, just stillness. Her bare feet touched the floor as she stood, moving slowly, like a shadow. She stepped into the hallway, peeking around the corner, and there he was, Daniel, standing by the stove, flipping something on a pan, humming softly to himself. He looked up and smiled when he saw her. Good morning, he said gently. I made breakfast. She blinked, unsure what that meant. No one ever cooked for her. Food was something she had to steal, hide, or fight for, and now someone had prepared it for her. Just because. She sat at the small table, eyes locked on the plate in front of her, eggs, toast, and some fruit slices. Daniel noticed her staring. It's all for you, eat as much as you want. She picked up a slice of fruit and sniffed it first, then took a small bite. Her eyes widened from the taste, sweet and soft, different from the dry rations she once ate at the shelter. Daniel sat across from her, watching her carefully, not pushing, not rushing, just being there. After breakfast, he asked, do you want to see the garden? She followed him outside. The air was fresh and filled with strange smells, flowers, grass, soil, wind. Daniel showed her the small garden beside the house, full of colorful plants. He pointed to one with small yellow blossoms. These are called sunblinks. They bloom in the morning. She reached out, gently touching one petal. It didn't hurt her. It didn't run from her. It just stayed still in her hand. Later, Daniel gave her paper and some color pencils. You can draw if you want, he said, placing them on the table. She picked up a pencil but froze. I don't know how. He smiled kindly. That's okay, you can learn. She tried slowly. The lines were shaky, the shape strange, but Daniel didn't laugh. He didn't scold her. Instead, he said, "That looks nice. What is it?" She tilted her head, confused. "It's a star, but it's broken," Daniel nodded. "Even broken stars still shine." Something about his words stayed in her mind, all day and even into the night. That evening, as the sky turned purple, Daniel gave her a soft towel. "You can take a bath, I'll show you how the water works." She followed nervously. Water was something she feared. Cold, rushed, and always with someone shouting at her to be quick. But this water was warm, gentle, and the towel was soft like clouds. When she stepped out, wearing fresh clothes Daniel had left for her, she found him in the living room, reading. He looked up and smiled. "You look clean and happy." She didn't know how to respond. Her cheeks turned slightly warm, and she sat beside him quietly, close but not too close. They sat in silence, and it didn't feel awkward. It felt peaceful, like a quiet place between storms. She glanced at him, then whispered, "Why are you being so kind to me?" Daniel looked at her, eyes calm. "Because you deserve kindness." Her hands tightened in her lap, her voice shaking. "But I'm broken." Daniel leaned closer and said, "Even broken things can be loved." She turned her face away, hiding her tears, but in her heart, something began to change, something slow, gentle, like a seed finally waking in the soil. The days passed gently in Daniel's home, like slow rivers flowing under a warm sun. The alien girl no longer woke up in panic. Her breathing had softened, her body moved with less fear, though she still jumped when a door creaked or a dish clinked too loudly. But something inside her had started to shift. She now ate breakfast beside Daniel without hesitation, even reached for second helpings of the soft bread he baked. Sometimes she smiled without realizing it, though she always hid her mouth behind her hand, as if she wasn't allowed to show happiness. Daniel noticed, but never pointed it out. He treated her like any normal person, not like a wounded thing. He gave her space when she needed it and company when she didn't ask for it. One morning, he handed her a small clay pot with a seed inside. "This is yours now. You water it, care for it, and it will grow," he said. She stared at it as if it were made of gold. "It's really mine." Daniel nodded. "Yours completely." She touched the soil gently with her fingers, feeling the cool dirt. The idea that something small and fragile could become something beautiful made her chest feel tight in a strange way. Later that day, she sat in the garden, watching the birds hop along the fence. She had never watched birds before. No one had let her sit this long without shouting. Daniel walked out and placed a small blanket beside her. "Mind if I join you?" he asked. She looked at him, then nodded slowly. He sat beside her, close enough to share the silence, but far enough not to scare her. She pointed at a red bird, her voice quiet. "That one comes every morning." Daniel smiled. "Then maybe it likes you." She blushed, the color glowing faintly on her pale skin. That night, a sudden noise outside startled her, loud banging and shouting from a neighbor's field. Someone yelling at a machine. The girl froze in her bed. Our body trembling, her mind racing back to the shelter, to the dark, to the cold hands that dragged her. She crawled under the blanket and covered her ears. Daniel, hearing the noise too, quickly came to her room and knocked gently. "Are you okay?" She didn't respond, her breath shaking under the blanket. He stepped inside slowly, sitting beside the bed. "It's just the farmer next door. His loader breaks down sometimes. It's okay now." The blanket moved, and her eyes peeked out, wide, afraid. Daniel didn't touch her, but he spoke softly. "You're safe here. No one will hurt you again." She looked at him, tears building. "You promise?" Daniel nodded. "I promise." She crawled out from under the blanket and did something she had never done before. She leaned against him, her small frame pressing into his side, her arms wrapping lightly around his. Daniel didn't move. He just stayed still, letting her decide the moment. They sat like that for a long time, until her shaking stopped and her eyes closed, her body slowly relaxing for the first time in years. Before she drifted off, she whispered something soft, almost too quiet to hear. "I believe you." Daniel looked down at her, his heart heavy and full at the same time. He whispered back, "Thank you for trusting me." And for the first time, the girl slept without fear.
At first, life in Daniel's home felt like a quiet dream. The girl began to speak more, eat more, even laugh softly when Daniel told her stories. She helped water the plants, folded her blanket neatly, and began drawing again, with fewer broken stars and more skies full of light. But outside the house, Things were not so soft, not so kind. One morning, Daniel took her to the town market. It was a small place, filled with wooden stalls, the smell of fruit, spices, and metal tools in the air. The girl wore a clean dress Daniel had picked for her, her hair brushed, her eyes still shy but curious. She stayed close to his side, holding the small bag with their list. At first, the townspeople just stared. Whispers followed them as they moved from stall to stall. "Is that the broken alien girl from the shelter?" someone muttered. "Why would he bring that into his home?" another said louder. Daniel pretended not to hear, but the girl heard every word. Her shoulders drooped slightly, her steps slowed. At one stall, a vendor refused to take Daniel's credits. "I don't serve his kind," the man said, glaring at the girl. "She's just a child," Daniel said firmly. "She's not a child, she's a danger, she's alien trash," the vendor snapped back. The girl flinched, dropping the small fruit she had picked, her hands shaking. She looked at Daniel with wide eyes. "Did I do something wrong?" Daniel's jaw tightened. He picked up the fruit and handed it to her. "You did nothing wrong." Then he looked at the vendor. "Shame on you." They left the market early, walking back in silence, the girl clutching the bag with both hands, trying not to cry. Back at the house, she sat on the steps, her eyes down, her voice low. "Everyone hates me." Daniel crouched beside her. "They don't know you, they only see what they want to see." She blinked fast, trying to be strong. "Maybe you should send me back, they're right. I don't belong here." Daniel took her small hand in his, firm but gentle. "You belong with me, not with them." She didn't speak, but a tear rolled down her cheek. She wiped it away quickly, as if crying was something she had been punished for before. Later that evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Daniel gave her something wrapped in cloth. "I made this for you." She opened it carefully. Inside was a necklace, simple but beautiful, made with a polished stone and a silver string. Her name, Lyra, was carved on the stone, the name Daniel had chosen for her the day she came home. She looked up, shocked. "You gave me a name." "You deserved one," he said, "and now you have something no one can take from you." Lyra held the necklace in her hands close to her chest, as if it were more valuable than gold. That night, she asked quietly, "What if they come to take me away?" Daniel looked at her, his voice steady. "Then they'll have to go through me." Outside, the stars began to glow across the sky, but inside, in that small house, something brighter had already begun to shine. Her sense of worth. The air grew cold that evening, the kind of cold that didn't come from the wind, but from something unseen. A strange stillness settled over the hills. Even the birds stopped singing early. Lyra sat by the window, hugging her knees, watching the stars rise. Daniel was in the other room, fixing the old lantern just in case of a power cut. It had been a peaceful day, but something in Lyra's heart felt heavy, like a warning she couldn't explain. A soft pop echoed in the distance, then another, closer this time. Lyra's body tensed, her eyes wide. Daniel rushed to her. "Don't worry, it's just the neighbor's machine again." But Lyra shook her head, her hands trembling. "No, it's not the same sound." And then, the lights went out. The whole house darkened in a blink. Daniel grabbed the lantern, lighting it quickly. The soft glow pushed back the shadows just a little, but outside the silence turned to whispers, then footsteps, heavy, fast, multiple. Daniel moved fast, locking the doors, checking the windows. He handed Lyra a flashlight. "Go to your room, hide under the bed, don't come out unless I say your name." Her lips trembled. "What's happening?" He didn't answer directly. "Just trust me." Lyra ran to her room, heart pounding, the old fear rising from deep inside her chest. She crawled under the bed, clutching the flashlight, tears falling without sound. Outside, Daniel heard the first knock. Not a polite knock, but hard, angry, the kind that didn't wait for permission. "Open up, human," a voice growled. "We know you're hiding the alien girl." Daniel stepped toward the door, gripping a metal rod, his voice steady. "She's not hiding, she's home." A loud bang shook the door. Someone was trying to break it. Daniel's heart raced, but he didn't step back. Under the bed, Lyra covered her ears. Flashes of the shelter filled her mind. Dark hands grabbing her. Pain. Screaming. Metal doors, no escape. Suddenly, a crash. The window in the kitchen shattered. Someone was inside. Daniel moved fast, swinging the rod, knocking the intruder back, but there were more. 3, maybe 4, masked figures with stun guns and metal gloves. "You can't protect her forever," one hissed, raising his weapon. Daniel's breathing was heavy, his stance firm. "I'll protect her for as long as I live." In the other room, Lyra felt something strange inside her chest. A burning light, not fear, but something deeper, older. The door to her room creaked open. One of the attackers had found her. "There you are," the figure whispered. Lyra screamed, not in fear but in power. Her body glowed with light, blinding, hot, pure. The attacker stumbled back, blinded by the sudden burst. Daniel saw the flash, heard the scream, and ran toward her room. When he entered, he saw Lyra glowing, her eyes lit like twin stars, her body shaking. The attacker dropped to the ground, stunned, unable to move. Daniel rushed to her, grabbing her shoulders gently. "Lyra, it's me. It's okay." The light slowly faded, her body weak. She collapsed into his arms. I didn't mean to. I just didn't want to lose you." Daniel held her close, cradling her small frame. "You saved me, Lyra. You saved both of us." She looked up at him, barely able to speak. "I didn't know I could do that." Daniel smiled through his worry. "You're more powerful than you realize." Outside, the attackers fled into the dark, leaving behind their fear, but inside, something had changed forever. The sun rose slowly, casting pale gold across the broken glass and scuffed floor. Daniel sat beside Lyra, who lay sleeping on the couch, wrapped in a thick blanket, her breathing soft but shallow. She hadn't woken since the light burst from her the night before, since she saved him. Daniel had cleaned up the mess, boarded the windows, and checked all the locks again. The attackers were gone, but their shadows still lingered, especially in Daniel's heart. Lyra stirred, her fingers twitching, her eyes fluttered open, confused, afraid. "Daniel," she whispered, weak and unsure. "I'm here," he said gently, kneeling beside her. "You're safe now." Her body relaxed a little, but her face twisted with fear. "I hurt someone, didn't I?" Daniel shook his head. "You protected us, Lyra. What happened wasn't wrong, it was brave." She looked down, her voice low. "I didn't know I could do that." "The light, it just came." Daniel sat beside her. "That light came from inside you. It's part of you, a gift you didn't know you had." Lyra blinked. "But gifts are beautiful." "I'm not." Daniel touched her hand, firm but kind. "You are beautiful, Lyra, not just outside, but deep inside, where that light lives." She stared at their hands, his warmth slowly reaching into her cold fingers. Later, Daniel contacted an old friend, a human researcher who specialized in alien biology and forgotten genetics. He asked her to come quietly, to help understand what was happening to Lyra. Dr. Maven arrived at dusk, a tall woman with silver glasses and calm eyes. She examined Lyra with care, asking no harsh questions, using no sharp tools. After a few scans, she looked at Daniel and said, "This child has something rare. Her kind once carried ancient bioenergy, long lost, but still sleeping in some of them. It only wakes under great danger or great love." Daniel turned to Lyra, whose eyes widened. "You mean, I'm not broken?" Dr. Maven smiled gently. "Far from it, child. You're one of the rarest living beings in this sector." Lyra looked at Daniel, her lips trembling. "You woke it up. When you protected me." Daniel smiled. "No, Lyra. You woke it when you chose to protect me." For the first time, she smiled without hiding it, her cheeks glowing softly in the lamplight. That night, as the stars blinked above the hills, Lyra sat in her small room, staring at the necklace Daniel had given her. Her fingers traced her name carved into the stone. She whispered to herself, "I'm not broken. I'm gifted." Then she stood and stepped outside, the wind brushing her face, her feet bare on the grass. She raised her hands slightly, and the soft glow returned, not wild or dangerous, but peaceful and warm, like the light of a small star learning to shine again. Daniel watched her from the doorway, arms crossed, smiling proudly. He didn't speak, didn't interrupt. This was her moment. Lyra turned slowly and saw him. "Are you afraid of me now?" Daniel shook his head. "Never." She walked toward him, her glow fading gently as she reached him. She looked up, her eyes steady for the first time. "Then, can I stay?" He bent down and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Lyra, this is your home for as long as you want it." And with those words, she finally believed it. The days that followed were quiet but full of change. Lyra began to sleep through the night. No more shaking in her sleep, no more cries in the dark. The nightmares that once hunted her were fading slowly, like shadows at sunrise. Daniel noticed every little thing, how she smiled a little more each day, how she spoke without fear, how she no longer flinched when someone knocked at the door. One afternoon, she sat by the window with her drawing pad, sketching something with full focus. Daniel walked over and looked down. It was a picture of a house, their house, with a garden, a glowing star above it, and two small figures, one tall, one small, standing together. Daniel smiled. "Is that us?" Lyra nodded, her eyes still on the page. "Yes. You made me taller than I really am," he joked. She giggled softly. a sound he never thought he'd hear from her when they first met. Later that evening, Daniel found her standing in front of the mirror in the hallway, her necklace hanging around her neck. She stared at her reflection for a long time, not with disgust or fear, but curiosity. She touched her scarred face and whispered, "Maybe. I'm not ugly." Daniel stood nearby, letting her speak to herself, not interrupting. She turned and saw him watching, her voice shaky but firm. "I want to keep this face. I don't want to hide it anymore." He walked closer and said gently, "Your face shows what you've survived, not what you are. And you, Lyra, are strong." Her eyes watered, but she didn't look away. She nodded slowly, accepting his words like sunlight warming her skin. The next day, Lyra asked to go into town again. Daniel paused, surprised. "Are you sure?" She nodded. "I want them to see me, not as a thing to fear, but as someone who is alive." He smiled, proud but cautious. "Then we go together." They returned to the market, the same path, the same stalls, but Lyra walked taller this time, her eyes forward, her steps sure. Some people still whispered, others looked away, but a few looked curious. Not afraid, just curious. One older woman selling fabric smiled at her. "That necklace suits you, child." Lyra smiled back, shy but steady. "Thank you." Daniel noticed how her hand didn't tremble anymore when she picked something up, how she didn't shrink behind him. She was becoming herself, not who the world tried to break, but who she was meant to be. That evening, Daniel lit a fire in the hearth, and they both sat quietly in the warm light. Lyra leaned her head against his shoulder and whispered, "I used to wonder if I could ever be fixed." Daniel looked at her. "You were never broken, Lyra. You were hurt, but you are healing." She closed her eyes. "It feels warm inside now, not empty anymore." He placed his arm around her gently. "That warmth, it's your light returning." For a long time, they sat like that. No words, no fear, just a quiet closeness that spoke louder than anything. Later, as Lyra went to bed, she paused at the door, turned back and said, "You gave me safety first, then hope. Now you've given me something more." Daniel tilted his head. "What's that?" She smiled. "A reason to stay." News of the attack had spread beyond the quiet hills. Whispers turned into stories, and stories turned into fear. People in the town spoke in low voices about the alien girl with the glowing eyes. Some called her dangerous, others called her unnatural, but Daniel knew better, and so did Lyra. Still, the world beyond their small home had to be faced. One morning, Daniel stood by the window reading a message on his tablet. "They've called a town meeting," he said quietly. "About us." Lyra froze, the warmth in her chest flickering like a candle in wind. "Do they want to take me away?" Daniel looked at her with steady eyes. "They'll try maybe, but we're not going to hide anymore." Lyra gripped the edge of the table, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm scared." Daniel stepped closer, placing both hands on her shoulders. "You don't have to be brave alone. I'll be right there beside you." That afternoon, the meeting hall filled with townspeople, some curious, some angry, and a few silently afraid. At the front stood the mayor, arms crossed. Daniel entered first, followed by Lyra, who held his hand tightly. The room went silent, all eyes on her. Some muttered, "That's her." Others frowned, stepping back slightly, as if afraid of being near her. The mayor raised his voice. "Daniel, we welcomed you here because you were one of us. Now you bring that creature into our town and endanger us all." Daniel didn't flinch. "She's not a creature. Her name is Lyra, and she saved my life." The mayor scoffed. "With unknown power, what if she loses control? What if next time someone dies?" Lyra stepped forward, her voice small but clear. "I didn't want to hurt anyone. I only wanted to protect the person who gave me a home." The crowd murmured, watching her closely. She didn't glow, didn't scream. She just stood there, small, quiet, real. One old woman stepped forward. "I remember her from the shelter. She used to sit in silence like a shadow." Lyra nodded. "I was broken then, but I'm healing now." Another man shouted, "She's still alien, not one of us." Daniel raised his voice. "Then what am I? Because I chose her, I raised her, I live beside her, and I'm telling you, she's not a danger, she's a miracle." Lyra looked at the crowd, her heart pounding, her hands shaking, but she didn't run. "I didn't choose to be born different, but I choose to be kind, I choose to stay, I choose him," she said, pointing to Daniel. A long silence followed. The townspeople didn't cheer, they didn't rush forward with open arms, but some of them looked unsure now, not angry, just uncertain. The mayor frowned but gave a slow nod. "We'll be watching." he said coldly. Daniel replied, "So will we." When they walked out, Lyra leaned against him, her legs weak. "Was that okay?" Daniel smiled. "It was more than okay. You stood in front of the world and showed them your strength." That night, they sat outside again, the stars blinking softly. Lyra looked up and whispered, "I didn't know I could speak like that, not in front of all those people." Daniel chuckled. "You've always had a voice, Lyra. It just needed the right moment." She rested her head against his arm. "Do you think they'll ever accept me?" He looked into the sky and said, "They don't need to. You already accepted yourself." And in that quiet moment, the world finally felt a little smaller, a little softer. Weeks passed after the town meeting, and while some people still looked at Lyra with fear, others began to nod politely when she walked by. She and Daniel continued living in their quiet home on the hill, but now the silence wasn't heavy or cold. It was peaceful, like the world finally knew she belonged. Lyra no longer hid in corners, no longer whispered like she was afraid to be heard. She hummed softly while watering her plant, now tall and blooming yellow. She cleaned the windows, helped cook simple meals, and even went to the town library with Daniel once a week. The librarian, an older woman with tired eyes, handed her a book without speaking the first time, but by the third visit she smiled and asked, "Did you like the last one?" Lyra nodded quickly. "It had stars and old legends. I liked it very much." Daniel smiled quietly from the side, watching Lyra speak without fear. One afternoon, Daniel built a small bench under the tall tree beside the house. Lyra painted its legs blue and carved small shapes into the backrest, stars, moons, and a single name, Lyra. She sat on it often, sketching in a notebook, drawing the dreams she never dared to dream before, homes with open doors, skies with no cages, people with open hands. One day, as Daniel returned from the market, he found her sitting there, her eyes thoughtful, a soft breeze brushing through her hair. "Daniel," she said, looking up as he approached, "what would have happened if you hadn't chosen me?" Daniel sat beside her, placing the bag down. "Then I would have missed the best part of my life." Lyra looked down at her hands. "Sometimes I think about the shelter, about how cold it was, and how quiet." Daniel waited, letting her speak. She continued, "I used to pretend someone would come, but I never believed it." He gently touched her hand. "I'm sorry it took so long." She shook her head. "You came, and that's enough." That night, as they sat under the stars with hot tea in hand, Lyra turned to him. "Do you ever think about what I'll become?" Daniel smiled. "I think you'll become exactly who you were meant to be. Strong, kind, and brighter than anyone expects." Lyra hesitated, then asked, "Can I call you something?" He tilted his head. "Of course." She looked down at her cup, then whispered, "Can I call you family?" Daniel's heart filled with a warmth deeper than any fire. He reached out and gently hugged her, her thin arms wrapping around him slowly. "You've been my family since the moment you placed your hand in mine," he said softly. From that night on, everything felt different, not because the world had changed, but because she had, no longer a scared girl in the shadows, no longer a forgotten name in a cold record file. She was Lyra, strong, glowing, chosen, loved. And when the townspeople passed her on the street, they didn't just see an alien girl anymore. They saw a person, someone who had faced fear and didn't run, someone who had found light inside her own broken pieces and made something whole. Back at the house, the small plant on the windowsill bloomed fully for the first time. Yellow petals opened to the sky. Daniel noticed and smiled. "Looks like it knows its home." Lyra looked out at the hills, her heart calm, her voice steady. "So do I." And for the first time in her life, she didn't feel like a guest in someone else's world. She was home.